Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Let's welcome today's speaker, Evan.
Thank you, guys. I'm Evan, and I'm an alcoholic. And thank you, John and Lydia, for inviting me out. This is Lydia gave me an this is an adrenaline rush, and I don't do adrenaline the way I used to, so it's a little intense. I used to mainline this stuff, and I found out I was speaking, and then Lydia sent me a text a day early going, "Can't wait to see you tomorrow," and I was like, "Whoa, I got to be spiritual tomorrow?" And I calmed down. I realized, I double-checked and realized, but thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's great to be able to hear my share again. It's been so long, and I love it so much. Congrats to all the birthday people, all the chip people. That's big stuff. And welcome to the newcomers. If you're new, I want to tell you, despite all appearances, you're going to be okay. We're going to be all right. I'm just a vodka drunk for the new people. Just so you know, I drink vodka, I lay down, and then it's your problem. That's who I am at the core. When I got here, I came to this room, I weighed 135 pounds, I was 6'2". I was a picture of beauty. And, I tried for 2.5 years. I knew I was alcoholic. The first meeting I went to, it was no problem. I knew I was alcoholic. But my life was not unmanageable. I don't know where they came up with that phrase. It is so intrusive. You know, my life was manageable. She still had a job, you know. And, it wasn't a problem. And it took me 2.5 years before she said, "I'm done." Before all of a sudden it was unmanageable. And I had a plan. I had a program when I got here. That's what's so hard about AA. They keep going, "Oh, we got a new program." I'm like, I got a great program. You know, I figured it out when I was 5 years old. I was walking with my dad, he was a single dad, and he'd had timing problems. He kept starting relationships before he ended the last one. And generated all this heat, and but he kept me with him, and he taught Sunday school, oddly enough. But we would walk to Sunday school, and he taught the bigger kids, and I was in the little kids thing. But we'd walk hand in hand to Sunday school. We were walking back from Sunday school one day, and I was like 5 years old. I remember. I asked him, I said, "Dad, explain God to me. I don't understand God. Who is God?" And I clearly remember him looking down at me and going, "You know, pal, I really couldn't tell you." And I was stunned. At 5 years old, I was stunned. I was like, "You don't know? It's like you have the keys and the wallet, and you don't know?" And it's like, "Jeez, I'll handle it." And we need cash and we need a mom, and I'm on it. And I formulated my program there. It was a 2-step program. If you were a woman, I wanted you to love and mother me. And I had to make that happen. If you were a man, I needed to borrow money. Or meet your wife or girlfriend and get her to love and mother me. That was my program. It was simple. It was, the meetings were very small. There's no real book. I sponsored myself, and I chased that program for the next 25 years. I had a plan. I wanted to, I figured if I get famous, we'll do it. Because the famous people had an entourage. They had people that took care of stuff. You know, they had drivers, they had cash, they had everything going, you know, clothes. You know, there were people picking out their clothes. I was like, that's it, you know. And my higher power was what you thought of me. If you liked me or not was my higher power, and I worshiped that. And it was very terrifying if you were in a crowded room, because I would see your faces, and if you didn't approve of me, that was a voice in my head. And I would read that attitude back. And so in a crowded room, my head got tremendously busy. And I found out in junior high school at my first party how terrifying that is, to have all these voices in your head. And I found drinking to blackout was fantastic. It was an excellent solution because you were still at the party, you know. You just didn't have voices. You were blacked out. You didn't even have to boot up any software, you know. You were just a screensaver. And it was just fish, you know. And so I wanted to get famous because I knew that way you'd get people around you who took care of you and handled the blackouts. And so that was my plan and my program when I got here. When I got to you guys and I finally surrendered, I was planning to live under the bench in the Haight-Ashbury that was across the street from Bradley's bar. I had some black jeans and a black t-shirt that I was wearing and some tennis shoes. I was on syndicated television 5 days a week, nationally, and I could not form sentences. And I wound up surrendering in San Rafael, California, in 1986 on May 8th, and on the back stairs of a little detox there at Lincoln House. And of course you guys sent in meetings, and I'd been to your meetings and I'd seen you and you were all happy and you were all showered and everything. I thought you were Mormons. I was like, oh my God. I have to get a bike and do brochures and do sales. They're going to want to put me in sales, you know. If you're new, let me let you know, there's no sales division in AA. They make more. It's great. Anyway, I surrendered, and I've moved on to my sponsor's living room floor, and I've been doing this ever since. I immediately jumped into the steps, and it's been unbelievable. It's so high def. It is so 4D. It is in sense around. It is loud. It is busy. I did the steps selectively the first time. I did the steps with the neighborhood, you know, and I started getting some work again, and I made some amends in the neighborhood financial, and I got a little job, and I would ride the bus. I couldn't believe it. I rode the bus to work. I was like, I would get home to my sponsor. I was living on his living room floor. I go, Austin, look what they didn't pay me. This is unbelievable. He go, well, maybe that's how much service you're worth. And I was like, whoa, you know. And the principles start sinking in, you know. And I started getting a little sobriety. I started getting work, though. I started performing again. I was performing in clubs because I wanted to be cute enough, you know, and so I started performing. I knew how to do that. And I finally saw performing as maybe a service, you know, helping people. And so I started working again. I started making some money, and I was traveling, and I was like getting a little nuts. I was on the road like 40 weeks a year, and I was only hitting a meeting here and there. And I got a little nutty, and I was shopping. I was spending the money. I started buying stuff, you know, because you wanted to look good. And I still had that same old higher power creeping in, that what you thought of me. And I got a little crazy. I got away from meetings. I moved to Hollywood. I got I got invited down, and I got an apartment with the carpet and the white fireplace and a car, white car, and the shoes matched the car. It was fantastic. And I was getting to be somebody, so I had to really invest. And I was doing this thing, and I was getting a little twitchy. I was on the road up in the Bay Area, and that earthquake hit. I was in a hotel, and that earthquake hit. And I woke up, and all the furniture was moving around the room, and I was like, holy shit, I got to marry somebody. And I had met this newcomer woman in Vancouver, and I was like, she called, the phone rang. It was weird. The phone rang, and it was her. I was like, this is a sign from God. You're it. And she was like, really? I said, yeah, I'll come get you. We got to make this happen. And I drove to Canada, and I got her in the car, and she looked great in the car, you know. And we drove down the coast listening to you two, you know. It was fantastic. And we got married out at Korea. We got married on the beach at Korea barefoot. You know, it was like the most incredible 2 months ever, and it was fantastic. And we got to a point. I was like 2 months. There was a point where I was like holding up this sofa I bought and designed, and she had a knife, and I was like, okay, this feels unmanageable. And, I'm going to get back to meetings, and I did. I came to you guys again. I was like, oh my God, she wants. I don't know what to do. I have no clue what to do. And some guys in the program hooked me up and said, talk to Howard P. You need a sponsor. And I got Howard P. and he was fantastic. He listened to me, and he's like, wow, that's insane. That's rough. And and he goes, and he and Pat had been married for like, I don't know, 500 years. I don't know. But I was like, he knew about love, you know, and I didn't know. I was trying. I said, I want to make this work, and I don't know how to do it. And he said, well, let's do inventory. We got into inventory. It's like, you know, my life's unmanageable. I'm insane. You know, what's my fear? She's going to kill me. I don't know. What's my part in it? And it was like, okay, there was an earthquake. I got scared and kidnapped a woman from a foreign country. What's my part in that? And I started writing about it, and I tried. And I asked Howard about love. I want to learn to love. And he was like, what is love? And I started reading books, and I read Road Less Traveled, sort of put it in a nutshell for me. Love is an action. Love is when you put aside what you want to do today and do something for someone else without expecting return. You have to take the action. And I didn't take, if you don't take the action, that's just an intent to love. I had a lot of intent to love. You know, I just wasn't hitting the pavement with it, you know. And to realize, to surrender one more time, I don't have the chops to love this woman. She needs help. She needs more resources than I have. And to go through the project, get to the 9th step, what would help her, and let's get her back to where she was when I crashed in on her life, and move her back and make amends. And I got her back to Canada, you know, and it took a while, and I followed up 6 months later, went up, made sure she was okay, and she was safe, and she was taken care of, and it was back the way I had found her as much as I could, you know, determine. And that drive back down the coast after that. And I got home, and I hadn't made the IRS amends. You know, they kept a tally. The IRS is fabulous. They keep a running tab, and it just said, you know, you owe this much now. And I was like, excellent, throw more on there. And I got back from Canada, and there was a bill, and it just said, pay now. It didn't say, sorry about the divorce, you know. Good work on the, you know, on sobriety. It said, pay now. And it had that number, and I just like started trembling. I was like, oh my God, I can never pay, I got to leave the country, you know. I really, because you don't pay the cover, you got to leave the club. And I just started loading the vehicle with camping gear. I figure I'm going to Mexico. And I'll call Howard. He's been great. And I called Howard P. And he was a great sponsor because he was a scientist and an engineer. He'd never quoted scripture or anything, so I really loved him. And I called Howard. I said, Howard, I want to thank you for all you've done. We've done some great work together. And I just want to let you know I'm heading out. And he goes, heading out? Where are you? I said, well, I'm going to leave leave. I said, I have a problem. And he said, a problem? I said, yeah. He said, you know, Jesus had problems. Yeah, I reckon he did, Howard. This is a big problem. He said, Jesus' problems were pretty big, don't you think? I said, well, yeah, to him. He said, there have been problems since Jesus was around. He says, have you ever not had problems? He said, I've always had problems. He said, have you ever not had them? I said, well, no, come to think of it, I have always had a problem. He said, what's phenomenal is we have a program for living where we can approach any problem in our lives, apply these 12 steps, walk through that problem, come out the other side, and there are miracles. He said, isn't that fantastic? I was like, he'd never lied to me, you know, and it worked with the, I was like, yeah, I'll unload the car, I'll call you back. And one more time, it was I'm powerless over the IRS, my life's unmanageable, I'm going crazy with this thing. Do some inventory. Okay, financial inventory. I didn't pay taxes. Why didn't I pay taxes? I don't want to pay taxes. They spend it on, I don't care about spaceships on the moon, four-wheel drives on Mars. I don't care about the tanks in the desert. They're misspending this money. And it's like, well, what do you like? Because everybody's kicking in. Somebody's kicking in. What do you like? And I go, okay, let's list the things I am grateful for. I'm grateful I had hot lunches at school growing up. The street lights were on. There were police taking care of the laws and protecting the community. There was clean water. There was, we were safe. I had an education. There's a ton of things. And I was like, there's a lot of things that I wrote, the lines on the road, that was the thing. I was like, my favorite thing is that yellow line in the middle of the road. That's a fantastic idea. Without that, the place would be a mess. And I said, I can kick in for that. And I called the IRS lady and I made a budget. She said, we got to get a budget. I did a budget and we figured out a payment plan and did this whole process, and I was willing to pay. I'm willing to pay. And I said, and she was there, and she said, that's great. And we set up the figures. I said, one more thing before you go. She goes, yeah. I said, can you make sure all my tax dollars go to yellow paint? She said, of course we can. So there's romance, there's finance. It works on all of that. Both those things I thought were the end of the world, Since then, I've encountered 100,000 things I think were the end of the world. Every day I wake up and I can come up with a scenario where the world is going to end on this particular day. I have that talent. And I love the adrenaline of it. I love that adrenaline. I love waking up and scaring the hell out of myself. You don't even need Starbucks, man. You can get up and you are like going. And you are freaked out and you are panicking. And I grew up freaked out and panicked, and it's a natural, comfortable place for me. And the only thing is, the stress level of it will kill you. And I had to drink. To take care of that fight or flight thing, to calm it down, to give myself a blackout. Blackouts were fabulous, When I came to you guys, my life was in total chaos from running in terror and trying to fix things that were unfixable by me, from trying to do things that were undoable by me, And I was drinking a fifth of Stoli a day, and I was a mess. I was dying, And you guys gave me a way of life to deal with the insanity that is built in, man. I got it built in. It's in my DNA. It's genetic. And I can wake up today. I don't have to freak out. I'm going to be okay. I have a God of my understanding. You showed me laws in the universe that are in place, that are undeniably in place. There are laws These are laws. If I love somebody, I will get loved back. Maybe by not that person, but by someone, I will get loved back. It's physics. I can't, it's like, and I don't argue with it anymore. It's funny, we will argue with these spiritual laws, but we won't argue about the physical ones, right? You never wake up, go out to a cliff and go, you know, gravity may be off today. This could be the day. We don't even dicker with it. But these spiritual laws are in place too that you guys shared with me, and I apply them in my life. And life is full on, man. It's like the birthday you shared. Life keeps coming. Ali talked about it, you know. I ran with adrenaline for a long time, you know, and you make some money. I lost some money. I've owned businesses. I've lost business. I've had the relationships I thought was it. I've lost the relationships I thought was it. I've had people die. I've had parents die. When I was 23 years sober, this was 5 years ago, I was 23 years sober, and it was 2008, right? And so it was more than that. Man, we're getting old, aren't we, Gregor? The economy hit, and my business, I'd started this business, and it was pretty successful. I was writing for these guys, and I was really having a lot of fun in an office with like floor-to-ceiling windows and the leather sofa. You know, I was looking good, and the economy tanked, and it went away. I was writing jokes for these guys, and I was doing pretty well. I was writing jokes, and it turns out jokes are kind of a luxury item. Who knew that was Try selling those door to door. And man, it just went away. And the relationship I was in with a woman, she had a horrible tragedy happen in her life, and just the worst tragedy whatever. And you know, I'm a sailor. I've been sailing boats in sobriety. I found sailing, and that's a whole nother story. But I love sailing, and I've been living on boats for 5 years, 3 years. I don't know. Sailing analogies work for me. When you're sailing, there's two things. When you're offshore and you're sailing your boat, if there's a storm, and the storm is so overpowering, it pushes your boat down, and the sails hit the water. That's called a knockdown, right? And guys go through that. Racers go through that. Round-the-world cruisers go through that. They're going around South America. They get knocked down and come back up and keep going. Then there's another thing called a rollover, where you're sailing and the wind hit, and the storm is so big, the wave's the wrong direction, you get rolled, where your whole mast, everything goes 360, and it just sweeps all the rigging off your boat, and now you're just basically in a little Clorox bottle sitting there, you know. Well, this woman I was in love with, you know, she got rolled. She got rolled by life. It was one of those things where there was no explanation, there was no... And what you do, you know, I tied up next to her. What we do in AA, you know, we just buddy up. You raft up next to somebody and you sail for them. That's what we do, you know. We glom on, you sail with them. And I did that. And it was rough going, and it's tight. It's hard on your rigging, and the weather's rough, and you got two boats rafted, and then there came a point where she just cut those lines. She didn't want to be rafted up anymore. She wanted to do her own rigging and do it her own way, and she just cut the lines. And my boat just peeled off, and I got sideways, and I got rolled. And a sponsee had been diagnosed with cancer, and he was in ICU, and I'd been in ICU with this other thing, and it was just a perfect storm of loss. I lost my business. I lost my romance. I'm not even spiritual enough to keep people alive. You know, it was like my head just conspired to take me down. And I looked up depression. I got depressed. And I looked up depression online because, you know, hey, there's always solution. Google doctor. And I went on WebMD and I put in depression, and it came up. It said depression. And I was like, excellent. And it said home remedies. And I said, there you go. It's home remedy. There's a smoothie, you know, who knew? And I hit home remedies, and it said, there's no home remedy. Go to an ER. You're in trouble. And I talked to my sponsor, and he says, where are you going to go? I said, I'm not sure. And I figured it out, and I had insurance still, and I wound up... It was 2 days later, my knees just buckled and I couldn't talk. And it was just tears. I couldn't do anything. I had no vitality. I had no reason to live. And I just showed up at this ER, and I didn't even know. The woman, I just shuffled in. I don't even know how I got there. She was like, what seems to be the problem? I couldn't even say it. And she says, can you write it down? And I just wrote depressed. And she goes, do you feel like hurting yourself? I said, okay. And they clear a room. It's fantastic. They clear a room of anything dangerous and put you in a bed. They put a guy at the foot of the bed who's like a guard. And he's like, hey, you know. And a doctor comes in. They take your vitals. They totally take care of you. And I told the doctor, I feel guilty doing this. He said, no, you're in the exact, this is what you're supposed to do. You're in the exact right space. And they sent in a psych doctor, and we analyzed what my options were and what to do. And I'd done 72-hour detox, and I said, lock me up 72 hours. Let's do 72 hours. And they did. They put you on a gurney. It's awesome. They strap you down, and there's ambulance guys, and they're like, it's okay, it's okay. And I'm like, yeah, it's okay. And you're in this ambulance, and they're taking me down to the psych unit, and I'm like, man, AA works. I haven't wanted to drink through any of this. I swear. And they're doing the intake. This guy's asking me questions. I'm trying to tell him my story. And we're in this little office in the psych unit, and I hear some woman yelling inside, and I just said, look, I can't help anyone here. He said, I'm sorry, I don't know what you're talking about. I need your shoelaces and your belt. And they checked me in, and it was the best thing ever, you know. These people totally took care of me. I had depression, and I had a psychiatrist every day, a different psych. The first one had no idea. She was like, you're 23 years sober? I go, yeah. She goes, but you drink, right? I go, no. And the other one wanted to give me pills, and then there was another one that had trouble. It was the fourth one. This woman came in. This is after I got my nutrition back. I got some sleep under me. They really took care of you. They really work on your chemistry. And my brain chemistry was just bad. And, you know, she said, we talked, and she said, have you done any Al-Anon work, codependency work in your program? I said, yeah, early on I did. She said, you know, I think if you just step up your Al-Anon stuff, you'll be fine. I'm checking you out of here. I was like, thank you. Thank you. And I did. I had a sponsee pick me up. He had 6 months sober. And Christopher picked up his sponsor out of the nut ward. But I did what we do. I did these steps in my life. Like Howard said, I had a problem. And I did these steps, and I worked through them. And I came out the other side, and there were miracles, and I made amends, and I did all these steps, and it took about 9 months before I was starting to feel vital again. You know? It took 9 months, and I was hitting my stag. I never, through this whole time, was not going to my meetings. I go to 2 men's stags a week. I go to a step study once a week. I had commitments. I was secretary of a meeting. I was literature commitment at another. When all this was going on, I only missed 1 meeting to go in the psych unit. I had to have somebody fill in the literature thing. This program is unbelievable. You can walk through anything with these steps. A month ago, my sister called up in Seattle. She said, my mother, this woman, it's my stepmom. We married into this family when I was 6, and this woman really raised me, stepped up, and this was the family that raised me. And they're normal, and they're healthy, and they're really cool people. 2 older brothers, an older sister. And my dad died when I got sober, and I got really close to this woman because my dad loved her very much. And we formed a real relationship. a spiritual relationship where we could talk about spiritual things. And she's a lovely woman, and she was my biggest champion, you know. She championed my sobriety the whole time. And my sister called and said, Mom's really going down fast. And I flew up a month ago. I flew up to Seattle, and I took my niece from San Diego. We went up, and she was, you know, she'd been fighting the delirium. She'd had Alzheimer's, and we used to laugh about it. She had a great sense of humor. But I got to spend time with her. And I came in, and she said, oh, you're here? How long are you here for? And I said, quite a while. She said, let me do the dishes. We'll get busy. I was like, no, there's no dishes to do. It's all handled. She goes, really? I said, yeah, take the rest of the day off. She said, is that what you're doing? I said, every damn day, Mom. She said, that's marvelous. And she went to sleep. You know, and it was 2 days later, she just surrendered and just slid away, you know. And my God, to walk through that with a family, to feel the feelings, it's been unbelievable. The idea of my sister had been doing the health directive. She'd been doing all the carrying mom to the hospitals and stuff for 6 months. She's like, it's all yours now. Because it turns out I'm the executor, and how much trust is that, you know? It's such an honor. And I love this family. And to be able to do something to give back is phenomenal. It's a phenomenal feeling. And I tell you, this is the kind of stuff I ran from. This is the kind of stuff I didn't show up for. This is the kind of stuff I drank through, you know? And I've lost a lot of people. We lose people. As you get sober, you stay sober a long time, one of the downsides is people start going away. And you go, oh. What I've learned is when people pass away, no matter whatever the amount we loved them and they loved us, that fullness you get from being with that person, when they die, they hand that off to us. So all of a sudden, when you lose people, what you're getting is this tremendously much larger ability to love more people the way they loved you and you loved them. I tell you what, that's a sober idea. That isn't an idea that comes to me when I'm drinking. I'm blessed. I have a phenomenal life. I have people I love, people that love me, you know. I have sponsees. I care about them so dearly. And they're so hilarious, you know. They laugh at me so much. I love you new guys. I tell you what. I've taken guys sailing. I usually don't take new people sailing, but I took a new guy. He had 3 or 4 months. I took him sailing, and I usually wait because I took Trevor out, and we were going out, and you motor out in the sailboat, and there's a keel under the boat. Well, they had not moved the buoys, and there's this storm mud surge on the way out, and the boat just ran aground. It stuck in the mud. It just stuck there like that, and there was no getting off it. You run the engine, and you're just sitting there. Birds are flying by. You can't do anything. And Trevor's on the front of the boat. He turns around and he goes, "Who's powerless now?" So now I don't take them until they've done the inventory. And have a little compassion. But if you're new, I hope you stay here. Happy birthday, people. Thanks again for having me. I love you. And now I think I'm supposed to open it up for questions, which anything you want to ask is great, I guess. Ooh, that's a scary thing. Sure, go ahead.
Are you planning on selling jokes again?
The question is, are you planning on selling jokes again? No, you know what? It sort of ran its course, and it was fun. You know, it was a great time. But I sort of found out I don't have to push that hard. There was a whole thing about owning my own business, about being somebody, about this ambition thing. And you know, I no longer need to do it. And either financially or spiritually. And it was a lot of stress being self-employed that way. There's a lot of stress to being self-employed. You guys, A lot of you know that. And I really am going for peace in my life. I really, after that, part of that Al-Anon process when I was 23 was realizing I did a big inventory on how much adrenaline I had been jamming for 23 years. And it was all about doing shows, which is tremendously stressful. Traveling, I was working in bars. I was chasing romances that weren't available. I was trying to be somebody I wasn't. I was trying to be a businessman that I wasn't. I was still being pretty genuine, but I was still pushing. I was pushing, and I was wired out. It was pretty stressful. And what happened at 23, I realized I gave myself permission. It was Alan F. was my sponsor. And Alan said to me, I said, I got to do this thing, I got to do that thing. I would call him up, panicked. I go, I got to do this, I got to do that, and there's not enough time, I don't know what I did. Alan would go, look, I forbid you to do anything you don't want to do. I was like, whoa. Whoa. Really? I could do that? And I realized at 23, 24 years sober, yeah. Not when you're new. They don't say that to us when we're new. Because the stuff I would have done, what I wanted to do when I was new, was pretty toxic stuff. Until I got some program under my feet. Today, I don't have to do things I don't want to do. And it took a lot of work to get to that place. And I love my life today. So I don't really need to sell anything anymore. I'm really enjoying that. Thanks. Sure.
Yeah,
Hi, Jay.
when you were going through all that stuff at the same time and that led to your visit to the place, why did you keep going to your meetings? Why didn't you just put on sweatpants and sit on the couch?
Oh, okay. That's a great question. Why, when all this chaos was going on, I was losing my business, losing my relationship, why did I keep going to meetings? Why didn't I just put on sweatpants and lay on the couch? That's funny that you have that same thing. How many people here lay on the couch in sweatpants? It is the most popular thing, isn't it? I knew, even in the depths of that, that I was an alcoholic. And I knew, even in the depths of that I wasn't going to drink. There's no way I'm going to let any of this make me drink. I'm not going to drink no matter what. And I'm going to do my meetings. And I knew you guys had walked me through every overwhelming, seemingly insurmountable problem in my life. And you had never failed with your program. Your steps had never failed in walking through any insurmountable program in my life. So it was the only thing that worked. It was also the only thing that got me out of my self-obsession with the depression. Depression comes with a really cool narcissistic little self-obsession trigger. And that's what keeps me on the couch. Depression is adrenaline. I get adrenaline in my depression. When I cross over that brain chemistry, the worse it is, the more exciting it is, and the closer to death I am. And oh my God. And what's fabulous is it's a horror film. It's a horror film, but I'm starring in the horror film. I am the star. So I can be on the couch, be the star of this horror film one more interminable day. Or I can go to a meeting, get some comfort, get out of myself, hear about your day. And maybe find out how to wind my way out of this. I think it was hope, and it was like I just knew you guys, what you had worked. And it did, and it does. Sure. Do I go to Al-Anon or Coda now? Yeah, but I do about every month and a half, I'll swing into the Al-Anon meeting, you know. I really do a lot of inventory daily where I write down where I am. I know the earmarks of my thing today. I know when I'm starting to dive in and starting to deny my own feelings to take care of you. You know, if I'm postponing lunch to take care of you, there's a problem. Evan's got to have lunch to help you, you know. It's a fine line, but I pay really close attention to it today. Sure.
Robert Wilson, alcoholic.
Thanks.
Can you speak a little about the 11-step prayer and meditation?
Can I speak about the 11-step prayer and meditation? Yes. I didn't, when I first got here, I didn't do it at all. I had no idea what you meant, prayer and meditation. It sounded really ascetic, like I should go out to a monastery and you had to like pay somebody. It was sailing that worked for me the first time, when I first started sailing. And I had never sailed before, but I'd seen, Newport commercials. I knew you could look cool doing it. And I had bought this boat and rebuilt it. And I just went to the Wednesday Marina Center. I said, hey, you guys, I'm going sailing tomorrow. Anybody want to go? And they were like, have you had lessons or anything? I was like, how hard could it be, And I just took the boat out the next day. And of course, you get out there, and it's like, I'm reading the Annapolis Book of Seamanship, and it's up the mainsail, and I up the mainsail, and I came between two like apartment buildings, and the wind hit that sail, and it started going over like that, and I just like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. I was like, let go of the rope, and I let go, and the boom swung out, and the boat came back up, and it sailed forward like that. I was like, well, that's how you sail right there. I got back to the dock later that day, but I realized it was my first real look at stopping my brain. From the second I untied the boat and gone out, I had stopped thinking about any problems whatsoever. And at the Annapolis Book of Seamanship, I got back that night, and I said, what the hell was that? And it basically said over a couple chapters, you have no control over the wind or the waves, the tide, the weather. You only have control over the attitude of your rudder and the attitude of your sails. I was like, where have I heard this crap? So sailing was my first real introduction. And I'm able to carry that inner peace from sailing with me, today, and do it to get there on a daily basis. I can get there. And it's pretty comforting. It's everything. Peace. I go for peace today. And I hope you get peace. That's all I ever wanted when I drank. That's all I ever wanted. Peace. I wanted to feel okay. Today, it's what I work for. And because of you guys and the tools you've given me, I get to have it today. I hope that helps you. I hope you stay here and keep coming back. Thank you guys very much.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app, to calibration mode. First, I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.